Now we move on to a really interesting company, StemWave. This is probably the second most inquiries we get, and arguably the third most popular brand of device on the market currently. But there are some very interesting things about this company's founding and its operations, which some might find surprising. StemWave was founded in 2017 by a former executive of Shockwave. The CEO of StemWave, Tom Kostopoulos, once worked for SoftWave, and some say he was the marketing genius that took them to the top of the market in the 2010s. Either way, StemWave has emerged as a top contender in the focused Shockwave market. StemWave is an electro-hydraulic production device similar to SoftWave, but with a couple key differences. The found of StemWave did take a page out of the SoftWave playbook by securing exclusive US distribution rights for a device made in Turkey called the Modus made by Inseller Medical. Yes, that's correct. StemWave does not manufacture their own device either. StemWave's success certainly has been in its marketing strategies, which if the rumors are true and its founder was the driving force behind SoftWave, then that makes sense. But StemWave was smart. They sought out a machine that was cheaper to manufacture and had a leg up on SoftWave. See, when SoftWave's spark gap goes out, the entire handle needs replaced or refurbished, which is expensive. But StemWave sought out the Modus for its interchangeable spark plug, so providers can change it out themselves. Now these plugs aren't cheap, but they aren't nearly as expensive as SoftWave consumables. StemWave also has to change out the head of the handle and its hose periodically. Not to mention it is still using 1970s technology which requires highly sensitive electrical components to be submerged in salt water. Not a great plan if you want something to work consistently. But then again, is that perhaps part of the plan? You are selling something that will forever need ongoing parts and maintenance that only your company can provide? Pretty brilliant if you want to make money, but not quite the kind of company I would want to do business with it. But enough of that. What about the machine? It does indeed produce a good focused wave, but there can be issues with maintenance. And if the saline mix isn't perfect, you can have some wildly power and random shocks mixed in with your regular treatment. It's also quite loud compared to other devices. Mainly because the device itself is super small and compact, but it's placed on this huge chassis with the water tank in a big hollow metal cabinet, so every time it pulses and makes a loud hollow sound like a hammer on a steel drum. Its clinical results are just as good as SoftWave, although SoftWave would sue you for saying that, and in fact SoftWave did sue StemWave, but not for that. Now this is where we get into the dark underbelly of the Shockwave industry. See, SoftWave isn't stupid, and they knew their technology couldn't last forever. So from the early 2000s, they started filing a ton of absolutely random patents on anything and everything involving shockwaves. In fact, they filed patents on technology and methods that weren't even theirs. They filed patents that are so overreaching and broad, it's amazing they were even allowed. Now, SoftWave uses those patents to squash competition and force smaller companies into secret licensing agreements. And that is exactly what they did to StemWave. After the split, SoftWave sued StemWave for patent infringement and forced them into a secret licensing agreement. Now, no one is supposed to know this because SoftWave makes every company sign non-disclosure agreements. But that doesn't stop SoftWave executives from bragging about it at cocktail parties. Okay, back to StemWave. So is their device a little better than SoftWave? Yes. Did they undercut the price by $20K? Yes. But $65K for 1970s technology that still requires thousands of dollars of operating costs a year? Yeah, not sure that's quite hit the mark, but let's get into their science and their master class. SoftWave and StemWave both like to say they are the only true shockwave, and they then define a true shockwave as having a rise time less than 10 nanoseconds, which both companies clearly claim to have. I want to be extremely clear. They both have it listed on their websites, literature, and educational platforms that their devices can reach below a 10 nanosecond rise time. Bullcrap. Number one, each of these companies are selling other people's equipment, and their manufacturers list both the SoftWave device from MTS and the StemWave from Inseller Medical at 30 nanosecond rise times. And that is at the absolutely highest power level, which means their lower power levels are more like 200 nanoseconds. And for this, we have to cry foul. You cannot lie and make claims that your technology can do things that it simply can't. And you are not the manufacturers. And your manufacturer states that it is 30 nanoseconds at its highest power level, which you're not going to be using anyway. So finally report, electrohydraulic, still 1970s technology, overpriced. And they really try to milk you for every penny with their marketing scheme, add-ons. And their monthly premium membership, which is like $500 forever. And if you don't pay that, then it's nearly impossible to get your machine serviced. And just pray it doesn't break because you will be without a machine for about a month. Stay tuned for more Shockwave case files and follow us to support the cause for transparency in the industry.